Israel says it struck Iran's most secure leadership compound in central Tehran overnight, bombing the presidential office and the Supreme National Security Council hub. The IDF claims the nerve center of security decisions and nuclear planning has been dismantled. Trump, meanwhile, says Iran's leadership is gone. It is too late for talks. Lebanese capital Beirut chokes under black smoke. Iran's capital Tehran reels from fresh Israeli airstrikes as the US-backed offensive enters day 4. Hezbollah targets hit, US embassies shut after drones threats. Trump warns America can fight forever. Years of cyber espionage, hacked cameras in Tehran and tracked movements. A new report says Israel mapped out the late Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's entire life before a 60-second daylight strike killed him and top IRGC commanders. The US Embassy in Jerusalem tells American citizens stranded in Israel, make your own plans, we cannot evacuate you or guarantee your safety. Embassy staff shelter in place, no evacuations planned amid continuing missile strikes and drone attacks. Traffic passing through the Strait of Hormuz collapses by 86% as tankers pile up and crude oil prices surge, with war fears gripping the markets. As gas prices spike and shipping costs soar, India reviews its energy security amid heavy dependence on the Gulf. Hours after intercepting Iranian missiles and drones, the UAE President and Crown Prince walked through a Dubai mall greeting crowns in an attempt to project confidence and stability amid fear as the region reels under the escalating war. Senior Congress leader Sonia Gandhi slams the Modi government over its silence on the assassination of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Gandhi says silence on such a matter is not neutrality but abdication, warns that India's credibility and stance on sovereignty are at stake. Months after the Pahalgam terror attack and Operation Sindoor, Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari claims India is preparing for another war, says New Delhi should instead choose dialogue. Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Headlines at 8 with me, Neha Khanna. Our top story. West Asia is on fire. The attacks seem to be relentless. Israel now says it struck Iran's most secure leadership compound in central Tehran overnight, bombing the presidential office and Supreme National Security Council hub. The IDF claims the nerve center of security decisions and nuclear planning has been dismantled in a high-impact blow. In fact, US President Donald Trump has said Iran's entire leadership is gone and it is now too late for talks. The Israeli military has launched new strikes on Iran's capital Tehran and Lebanese capital Beirut, attacking what it calls military targets and the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Israel also says its ground troops will advance and seize additional strategic areas in Lebanon in order to prevent fire on Israeli border communities. Iran, meanwhile, is continuing to strike US allies in the Middle East. The US Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, has been hit by 2 drones launched by Iran. The attack caused what has been described as a limited fire and minor damage. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has claimed the hardest hits on Iran are yet to come. The US State Department has ordered the mandatory departure of non-emergency personnel in 6 Middle Eastern countries after urging Americans to leave the region immediately. President Donald Trump told an American television network the biggest surprise of the war has been Iran's attacks against Arab countries in the region. He also claims that the biggest wave of US attack on Iran is yet to come. Laying out his war objectives, Trump said he wanted to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, annihilate its navy and its nuclear ambitions, and stop it arming militant groups. But the Trump administration has been shifting the goalposts and contradicting itself since the beginning of the operation. On Saturday, the US and Israel shook the world as they struck Iran, killing Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and wiping out the entire leadership of that country. Iran has retaliated with a wave of attacks across the Gulf region. Today, the Israeli military has said its air force has struck the Iranian regime's leadership compound. Iran's former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei used this compound. Khamenei was killed at his own compound over the weekend in US-Israeli strikes. The IDF says numerous munitions were dropped on the presidential office and the Supreme National Security Council. They say a military training institution and additional key regime infrastructure were also hit. At least 787 people have been killed in Iran since the US and Israel launched strikes on the country on Saturday, according to Iran's Red Crescent Society. US-based human rights activists in Iran has said that 742 civilians have died, including 176 children. A member of the Iranian Parliament Health Commission has stated that 9 hospitals have been targeted in Iran by Israel and the United States. The first day of the attacks also saw over 160 young girls being killed in US-Israel strikes on a primary school in southern Iran. The Gulf region is witnessing a dramatic widening of the battlefield, with Lebanon now fully pulled into the vortex of the conflict. In Beirut's southern suburb of Dahieh, a Hezbollah stronghold, massive blasts shook the city so violently they were felt in central districts. Israel says it is striking Hezbollah command centers and weapon depots, and now ground invasion has begun. The US has urged its citizens to leave Lebanon immediately, calling the security situation volatile and unpredictable. Inside Iran, the strikes have hit both military and residential areas. Thick smoke rose over eastern Tehran as explosions rang out through the night. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has suffered significant blows, with senior commanders targeted, even as it carries out retaliatory attacks on US-linked sites in the Gulf. The fog of war is deepening and civilian casualties are mounting. The conflict, as we said, is spilling across borders. Drone strikes hit the US Embassy in Riyadh, causing minor damage, while the US Embassy in Kuwait has shut down. President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, claiming America has a virtually unlimited supply of weapons and could fight wars forever if necessary, possibly hinting at a potentially prolonged campaign. As explosions light up the skies from Tehran to Beirut, the question is not whether this war will escalate, but how far will it spread, how long will it last, and how much more damage will it cause? Also, what's in store next for Iran and its people?
In a dramatic escalation in the heart of the Middle East, 2 suspected Iranian drones struck the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, setting off a fire and triggering emergency security protocols across the region. The incident unfolded in the early hours of Tuesday morning, when a loud blast shattered the silence around the diplomatic compound in Saudi Arabia. According to Reuters, flames were seen rising from the embassy grounds shortly after the explosion. Sources familiar with the situation described the blaze as minor, but the symbolism of the strike is anything but small. CNN reports that no injuries have been confirmed, yet the geopolitical impact could prove far more severe. A direct strike on a U.S. diplomatic facility marks a bold and dangerous moment in an already volatile region. the U.S. mission to Saudi Arabia swiftly issued a shelter-in-place order for American personnel in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Tehran. Non-essential travel to military installations has now been restricted, underscoring fears of further escalation. The advisory stretches far beyond Saudi borders. It now applies to Bahrain, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Israel, the occupied West Bank and Gaza, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, the United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. This is not a local alert, it is a regional alarm. In a strongly worded statement posted on X, Mora Namdar, Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs, urged U.S. citizens to depart now from the listed countries using commercial transportation due to what she described as serious safety risks. The language was urgent, direct, and unmistakable. Earlier, the U.S. Embassy in Amman, Jordan, announced that its personnel had departed the diplomatic site due to a threat. That move now appears part of a broader pattern of heightened readiness. The strike in Riyadh, the evacuations in Amman, and the calls for Americans to exit the Middle East all point to one conclusion: the region stands at a precarious crossroads. Washington has not yet publicly confirmed Iranian responsibility, but if verified, this would mark one of the most audacious direct confrontations involving a U.S. diplomatic mission in recent years. For now, the fire may be contained. The diplomatic fallout is only just beginning.
In a revelation that reads like a spy thriller, the Financial Times has reported that Israel spent years infiltrating Iran's surveillance grid, hacking traffic cameras across Tehran, and penetrating mobile phone systems to map the movements of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. According to the report, nearly every major traffic camera in the Iranian capital was allegedly compromised with encrypted footage funneled to servers in Tel Aviv and southern Israel. Intelligence officials reportedly tracked daily routines, security patterns, and even the parking positions of bodyguards inside the heavily guarded compound near Pasteur Street, building a meticulous blueprint of the cleric's life long before the fatal strike. US and Israeli intelligence studied Khamenei's habits in extraordinary detail: where he lived, whom he met, how he communicated, and where he might hide in a crisis. Plans for a night raid were abruptly shifted to a daytime assault, injecting an element of shock. At around 6 a.m. Israel time, fighter jets unleashed precision-guided munitions on 3 targets within 60 seconds inside the Tehran compound, housing the Supreme Leader's office and national security apparatus. Israeli military officials claimed the strikes killed Khamenei and 40 senior officials, including the head of the Revolutionary Guard, a decapitation strike designed to cripple Iran's command structure in one sweeping blow. The audacity echoes a covert operation from September 2024, when Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad, allegedly targeted Hezbollah operatives with exploding pagers and walkie-talkies, devices subtly modified with hidden explosives and routed through shell companies to mask their origin. The fallout of these operations is ferocious and unparalleled. More than 1,250 targets inside Iran have reportedly been struck. Warships destroyed and retaliatory attacks have killed at least 3 US personnel in the Gulf. As tensions surge across the region, US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee has issued a stark warning to American citizens. Departure options are now very limited, and the US government cannot guarantee your safety. In a detailed advisory posted on X, Huckabee said the most viable route out of Israel is via shuttle buses arranged by the Israeli Tourism Ministry to the Taba border crossing into Egypt. From there, travelers may attempt to secure flights from Taba or continue onward to Cairo for broader international connections, including routes back to the United States. The US Embassy in Jerusalem confirmed that all American government personnel and their families are sheltering in place, underscoring the gravity of the situation. The embassy made it clear it's not in a position to evacuate private US citizens, urging individuals to make their own security arrangements. Huckabee explicitly advised against attempting an exit through Jordan, warning that access via the Allenby crossing is limited and flights from Queen Alia International Airport remain inconsistent and prone to delays. Amid the volatile security environment, the US Embassy has urged Americans to remain on high alert. Citizens have been advised to know the location of the nearest shelter and to treat every red alert siren as an imminent threat, given the risk of rocket, missile or drone attacks. The world's energy artery is seizing up. The Strait of Hormuz, the gateway for nearly a fifth of global oil, is not officially closed, but traffic is virtually frozen. Maritime data shows crude flows collapsing by 86%, with only a handful of tankers daring to cross where nearly 20 million barrels move on a normal day. Hundreds of vessels now sit stranded on either side of the strait. Crude carriers, product tankers, LNG ships, waiting, drifting, calculating risk. What we are witnessing is a global wait and freeze as the lifeline of east-west oil trade slows to a trickle. Markets have reacted with shock. Brent crude has surged close to $80 a barrel, while European gas prices have spiked sharply after attacks on Saudi and Qatari energy facilities triggered shutdowns. War risk insurance premiums are climbing. Freight rates are soaring, and every additional dollar in shipping cost is cascading directly into fuel prices worldwide. If this paralysis lasts days, delivery schedules will unravel. If it drags on for weeks, the consequences will ripple through refineries, airlines, factories, and households across the world. In New Delhi, alarm bells are ringing. India, heavily dependent on Gulf crude and importing up to 85% of its LPG through the Strait of Hormuz, is weighing contingency plans as stockpiles and strategic reserves come under scrutiny. Oil Minister Hardeep Puri has reportedly reviewed supplies even as President Donald Trump warns that the West Asia conflict could last weeks, not days. With tankers stalled, exports under review, and alternative barrels being chased from the US Gulf to West Africa, India may soon face a stock calculation: protect domestic fuel security or sustain its position as a refining powerhouse.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has issued a chilling declaration. No vessels are permitted to cross the Strait of Hormuz. The order, reportedly broadcast over Maritime VHF radio and cited by Reuters, amounts to a de facto shutdown of one of the most vital arteries in the global economy, a move that could send shockwaves through energy markets within hours. The warning comes as tensions explode across the Middle East following direct military exchanges between Iran, Israel, and the United States, and now the confrontation appears to be shifting to the sea. The Strait of Hormuz is no ordinary waterway. This narrow corridor links the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean, wedged between Iran's southern coast and Oman's Musandam Peninsula. At just about 50 kilometers wide, shallow, constrained, and militarily exposed, it's one of the most vulnerable strategic choke points on Earth. And it carries staggering weight. More than 20% of the world's oil and petroleum consumption, roughly 20 million barrels every single day, flows through this passage. Nearly 1/5 of global liquefied natural gas trade also transits these waters, much of it originating from Qatar. If the strait is truly closed, even temporarily, the consequences could be immediate and severe. Energy prices surging, shipping disrupted, global markets rattled. What began as missile exchanges may now be threatening the lifeline of the global economy. Over 80% of the oil and gas transiting Hormuz is bound for Asian markets. China alone purchases more than 90% of Iran's oil exports, according to industry analysis. While Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have limited pipeline capacity to bypass the strait, experts warn alternative routes can handle only a fraction of normal volumes. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has repeatedly described Hormuz as one of the world's most important oil choke points. Strategically placed islands, including Hormuz, Kesh, and Larak, give Iran geographic leverage over the shipping lanes. Disputed islands, such as Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb, and Abu Musa, further enhance Tehran's vantage point. The Revolutionary Guard, which controls naval operations in the Gulf, has long criticized the presence of foreign forces, including the U.S. Fifth Fleet based in Bahrain and major U.S. installations in Qatar. The strait has repeatedly been a flashpoint. During the Iran-Iraq tanker war of the 1980s, hundreds of vessels were damaged or destroyed. In 1988, a U.S. frigate struck an Iranian mine in the strait. That same year, an Iran Air passenger jet was shot down by a U.S. warship, killing 290 people. More recently, ship seizures and confrontations have intensified since Washington withdrew from the nuclear deal in 2018.
Amid missile interceptions and regional shockwaves, the leadership of the UAE made a strikingly public statement. The President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and Dubai's Crown Prince, Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, walked among shoppers at the Dubai Mall on Monday. This came after the country confirmed it had intercepted dozens of drones and aerial attacks launched by Iran. Despite heightened tensions in the Gulf, the mall remained crowded with residents and tourists. In videos shared online, the two leaders were seen walking calmly through the Dubai Mall, smiling, greeting shoppers, and even stopping for a meal. Sheikh Mohammed can be seen inviting a young girl towards him, crouching to her level and kissing her hand before she rejoined her family. The message was unmistakable. Business as usual, even as the Gulf simmers. A calculated projection of stability amid fear. This comes as the region reels from the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and a widening US-Israel-Iran confrontation that has drawn missile fire towards the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait and Bahrain. In a sharp reaction, senior Congress leader Sonia Gandhi has questioned the Modi government's silence on the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. She has said, in such a moment, silence is not neutral but an abdication. Writing an opinion piece in a newspaper, Sonia Gandhi described the killing of a sitting head of state during an ongoing diplomatic process as a grave rupture in international relations. She argued that while New Delhi has spoken of restraint and de-escalation, it has stopped short of clearly defending sovereignty and international law, a gap, she says, raises serious questions about the direction and credibility of India's foreign policy. Mrs. Gandhi pointedly noted the timing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had just returned from Israel, where he reiterated support for the Benjamin Netanyahu government, even as the region edged towards escalation. She accused Prime Minister Modi of initially condemning Iran's retaliation against the UAE without addressing the sequence of events that preceded it, and later resorting to broad calls for dialogue and diplomacy. Diplomacy, which she says was already underway before the Israel-US strikes on Iran. Sonia Gandhi has warned that if such targeted killings pass without principled objection from the world's largest democracy, the erosion of global norms becomes dangerously easier to normalize. Invoking history, Mrs. Gandhi reminded the Modi government that Iran once played a crucial role in blocking efforts within the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to internationalize the Kashmir issue in 1994 and has supported India's strategic presence in Zahedan as a counterbalance to regional pressures. With nearly 10 million Indians living across the Gulf region, Sonia Gandhi has argued that India's strength has always rested on being seen as an independent actor, not a proxy.
जाहिर है भारत की जो विदेश नीति रही है, आज मौजूदा सरकार ने उस विदेश नीति के परखचे उड़ा दिए। प्रधानमंत्री सऊदी अरबिया के रूलर से बात कर रहे हैं, प्रधानमंत्री यूएई के रूलर से बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ईरान के हेड ऑफ द स्टेट से बात नहीं कर रहे, नेतन्याहू से बात कर रहे हैं। मैं पहले भी कह चुका हूं, प्रधानमंत्री इस्राइल गए थे और ऐसे मौके पर गए थे। देश के लोगों को शक है कि प्रधानमंत्री के मशवरे से ही ईरान पे जंग हुई है। प्रधानमंत्री को बचाना चाहिए देश को। इस जंग के बारे में नेतन्याहू के साथ उनकी क्या बात हुई थी? और यही कारण है कि वो खामोश है, उनकी चुप्पी है, चूंकि उन्हें सब कुछ मालूम था।
अब भाई सोनिया गांधी जी को याद रखना चाहिए कि उनकी सास हो या उनके सास के पिता हो, उस समय से भारत की नीति जो है वो बिल्कुल नॉन अलाइंड रहने की है। नॉन अलाइंड मूवमेंट में भारत बहुत एक महत्वपूर्ण सदस्य भी था। हम किसी भी पक्ष के साथ अलाइन नहीं थे। हाँ, हमारे कुछ ऑल वेदर फ्रेंड्स हैं जिन्होंने हर एक विपरीत परिस्थिति में हमारा साथ दिया, हम उनके साथ को नहीं भूल सकते। लेकिन भारत तो एक लंबे समय से भारत की परंपरा रही है कि कभी भी ऐसे दो देशों के बीच में या देशों के समूह के बीच में तनाव बढ़ता है तो भारत हमेशा मध्यस्थता करता है। भारत को लोग बहुत महत्व भी देते हैं ऐसे मध्यस्थता वाली वार्ताओं में। तो हमने शांति की अपील की और दोनों पक्षों से कहा है कि एकदम डिस्केलेट करना चाहिए।
Months after the deadly Pahalgam terror attack plunged the subcontinent into a 4-day military conflict, Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari has claimed that India is preparing for another war. Addressing a joint sitting of Parliament in Islamabad amid noisy opposition protests, Zardari urged New Delhi to step back from what he called the war theatre and move towards meaningful negotiations. Zardari's remarks come against the backdrop of last May's tense escalation when India launched Operation Sindoor, targeting terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir after Pakistan-based terror groups orchestrated the Pahalgam attack that killed 26 tourists. New Delhi has maintained that the strikes were a direct response to cross-border terrorism, with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh asserting that India's retaliation was firm and ongoing. He warned that if provocations continue, India's response would stun the world. During the clashes, drone strikes, blackouts along the line of control, and heightened troop deployments pushed both nuclear-armed neighbours to the brink. The Pakistan president has also accused Afghanistan of acting as a proxy for India. New Delhi has repeatedly denied involvement in Afghanistan and argued that Pakistan harbours terror outfits and routinely blames neighbours for its own domestic instability.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said that India launched a strong retaliation against Pakistan under Operation Sindoor after terrorists from Pakistan entered Indian territory and killed innocent civilians. He added that the operation is still ongoing and warned that if Pakistan continues its actions, India will respond in a way that will stun the world.
आपने देखा, मैं देश का रक्षा मंत्री हूं मेरे बहनों भाइयों, पाकिस्तान के कुछ आतंकवादियों ने आकर भारत में पहलगाम में हमारे निर्दोष नागरिकों की हत्या कर दी। उसके बाद प्रधानमंत्री ने बैठक बुलाई और बहनों भाइयों उसमें यह निर्णय लिया गया कि हम इसका बदला लेंगे। उसके बाद आपने देखा कि बहनों भाइयों हमारे सेना के जवानों ने सीमा के इस पार नहीं, सीमा के उस पार जाकर उनको बड़ी संख्या में लोगों का सफाया करने में कामयाबी हासिल की और उस ऑपरेशन का नाम था सिंदूर ऑपरेशन। और आज मैं कहना चाहता हूं, वह सिंदूर ऑपरेशन अभी रुका नहीं है। पाकिस्तान यदि अपनी हरकतों से बाज नहीं आया तो आज मैं फिर से रक्षा मंत्री होने के नाते कहना चाहता हूं, बहनों भाइयों, इस बार हम ऐसा जवाब देंगे कि दुनिया देखती रह जाएगी। बहनों भाइयों, इस बार माफ नहीं किया जाएगा किसी भी सूरत में।
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also highlighted India's commitment to peace, referring to the West Asia tensions involving Iran, Israel, and the US, while also pointing to the government's efforts during the Russia-Ukraine war. He said Narendra Modi played a key role in securing a 4-hour ceasefire that enabled the evacuation of around 10 lakh young people from Ukraine, underscoring India's focus on protecting its citizens abroad.
और इस समय सारे विश्व की हालत कैसी है आप देख रहे हैं। अमेरिका, इजराइल और ईरान किस तरीके का इस समय युद्ध चल रहा है, माहौल चल रहा है, उसको भी आप अच्छी तरह से देख रहे हैं बहनों भाई। लेकिन भारत तो शांति का पुजारी है। जैसे रूस और यूक्रेन में लंबे समय से युद्ध चल रहा था, तो हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने रूस से भी बात की, यूक्रेन से भी बात की, अमेरिका के भी राष्ट्रपति से बात की। 4 घंटे के लिए युद्ध रुक गया और यूक्रेन से 10 लाख की संख्या में नौजवानों को बाहर निकालने में हमने कामयाबी हासिल की थी। यह है भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार।
That's all the time we have on this edition of Headlines at 8. Thanks so much for watching.